So this story actually goes back to starts in like 1973 in kindergarten, if you can believe that, where I met two of my best friends, who are still my best friends, in grade school. And we went straight through grade school, middle school, high school, very close, tightly knit, same bowling team, same Little League team, all of that. And we decided to go to State University, New York at Buffalo. And when we were up in Buffalo with about 15 other people that from the high school, Bayside High School in Queens, we all went up there together because we all had no idea what we wanted to do, but we were together. And that's when we met Gino, when we were up in college. And we all tend to use our own sense of normalcy as to, we're the only yardstick for what we consider to be normal. And everybody uses that yardstick when they meet other people. If they're like you, they're not like you, they have a different opinion. And immediately Gino was someone that the three of us bonded with. And we were very tight through college and always together. And Gino got married shortly after college to his college sweetheart. And it was the first wedding that any of us had gone to. We were probably 23, 24 years old, where one of us was getting married, and we were all, in the wedding together. And at the time, myself, my buddies Wayne and Charlie, we went back to Bayside, Queens. Gino was in New Jersey in East Rutherford. And sure enough, a couple of years after that, we all moved to East Rutherford. So we were all together again. And used to see each other, quite often, and go to Jet games together. And we were a tight-knit group. And the bond was very, very strong. And on 9/11, actually, I'm going to go to 9/9, because on 9/9, I had a little barbecue at my house, and we were all together. And we were just sitting around talking, on 9/9. And now I'll get to 9/11, how that day progressed for me. So started my day early in the morning as usual. I was a single father, and my son, who was about 3, was in the house, 3 or 4 years old. And I went off to work early in the morning, probably got to the office around 7:30. And we're going about our normal day, and we start hearing something that a plane crashed into the World Trade Center. And I remember my first thought very well. My first thought was, okay, well, someone must have been flying this small propeller plane and it had a mechanical issue, and it accidentally crashed into the building. So we were sitting at our computers trying to get as much information as we could get. At the time, everybody was really in shock. I hadn't really connected yet that Gino was even in the building. It was more of an overall type of disbelief, and then the disbelief was even further when we learned that it was a jet plane. And immediately my thought was, there's no way a jet plane with radar and 2 pilots is going to accidentally crash into a building. It's just, statistically, it's just not going to happen. And so we were watching some of that on our computer at the time. And then a second plane hit the other tower shortly thereafter. And at that point, it was clear that we were being attacked. We were under attack. And at that point, I started making phone calls to try and find out, what was happening, and couldn't really get a hold of anyone that I wanted to. We were told from our office at the time, we were working in Florham Park, we were told to head home and take care of our families. So I left the office, and instead of taking the Garden State Parkway home back down to Old Bridge, New Jersey, I decided to go to the Turnpike, because if I go to the Turnpike, you can see the New York City skyline and see what's happening. And as I came over a hill on Route 78 heading towards Manhattan, towards the Turnpike, you could see the huge amount of dust and smoke and just what appeared to be chaos, like a war out of a movie. And I was driving and watching and trying to focus on driving, and there were just so many things going through my head at that time. And when I was driving then south on the Turnpike Authority had dispatched all of its dump trucks and snowplow trucks, and they physically blocked off every exit on the Turnpike that might lead to the Lincoln Tunnel, the Holland Tunnel, the Goethals Bridge. Any crossing was barred. And I got home and went and picked up my son at pre-K, came home, and then we started having a bunch of phone calls trying to get information on Gino, if he had gotten out of the building, and watching this unfold on TV as things were, I was going to say progressing, but maybe the right word is degressing into, the towers collapsing and the antenna tower knocking out service. When that came down, the antennas on the building, and we're still trying to find out, was Gino okay? My neighbor directly opposite me across the street, he had gotten out. My neighbor that lives behind me, her husband did not get out, and Gino, at that point, there was no sign of Gino, and so we were kind of hopeful that he might be in the building. It had come down already, but he maybe he was somewhere. Maybe he had made it, and it was really a state of shock and sadness and disbelief. Shortly after, maybe a day or two after, we had his parents had a vigil at a church in East Rutherford, and we were all there. Lots of people from the community were there. It wasn't just for Gino, it was for anybody that may have suffered or lost somebody. And we're in the church, and Gino's father comes up to me and he puts his arms around me and he's crying, and he said, they took my boy. Took my boy. And I'm a young adult, and I've never dealt with any type of situation of this extreme. And I'm standing there, and I'm holding his father and his mother and his wife, who we all went we all went to college together. He met his wife in college, and ultimately there was no discovery of Gino until very, very much later, when they started doing the excavation and they started finding, identifying, doing DNA samples and finding some remains of him. And we ended up down the road burying what they recovered. And to this day, Shelli, I don't want to say I think about 9/11 on a daily basis, because I don't. At one point I did. I don't. But there are things that you experience in your life, and triggers when you hear something. And I'll give you an example. Gino was a huge Van Halen fan. And anytime Van Halen came on the radio, he would turn the radio up and say, "Barry, it's Van Halen. You just listen to the music. We can't talk anymore." And we're talking. So every time, that's just one example, but every time I hear a song from Van Halen, it brings me right back to remembering, years of 4 years of college with Gino, and then the whole 9/11 event and the loss. And there's other things along those lines. Gino was, he was a man of few words. He really didn't waste words. And I have a list of things that he used to say. And if I'd like to just, it's not a very long list. I'd like to just go through the list of things that he used to say. My mother used to do this for me. We used to say that quite a bit. I like my things neat and clean. Toilet paper should be folded, not crumpled. Car magazines make the best bathroom reading material. Gino was a very big car enthusiast. Even if you know you're wrong, he said, there's no reason to admit it. I don't know, I was never in agreement with that one. But right after that, it's be nice and don't talk about other people. My favorite one, and I use this one at work all the time, quality pays, it doesn't cost. If you want to pay the least and get the cheapest thing, you're going to replace it pretty quickly. I don't know how to sit still. Let me go clean something. Don't let people know your business. Keep it to yourself. Do things because you want to, not because you have to. I'd rather do things myself so I know it gets done correctly. I can never tell you what I really do at work. He worked at Cantor Fitzgerald. And we always asked him, what do you do at work? And he's like, I really can't tell you. Never let people know where the printing press is. And that last one, we always kid around. Gino would go buy something expensive and something else, and we'd say, you must be printing money. Where's the printing press? And we would go in the basement and try and find the printing press. And his wife would say, Barry, I don't know where the printing press is. But these were the things that he used to say, and he wasn't one to waste words. And so when he said something, you listened to it. Whereas myself and Wayne and Charlie, we would go on gossiping with each other or talking, and saying whatever comes out of our mouths. I mean, nothing bad, but we would use a lot of words. And he would just sit there and kind of listen to us, and every once in a while chime in. And when he did chime in, it was of value. So I can say a lot more, Shelli, but I think I tried to get across the sense of loss of someone that you're so close with, that's there one day, and in a split instant, they're gone. They're off. They're no longer on the earth, and I just feel fortunate that I got to know this person, built a strong relationship with him within our group. Because we kind of felt like, well, we already have a tight-knit group of friends. And I don't mean to say like we don't need to have more friends, but we didn't think we would find someone that would fit into our little group and be quite different from us and have his own perspective and still just, plug in to the group as if he always belonged there. I still have a connection with Gino in that, believe it or not, I actually work with his younger brother. We work at the same company. And so I get to speak with him quite often, and my relationship with him is it's very strong. Now, it's probably stronger, I would suspect, than it would have been had we not lost Gino. But it's, it was a good relationship prior. And now it's kind of, every time I look at his brother, I see a bit of him. So simultaneously brings me some joy and some sadness. But I will say what it does is it gives me perspective.
What was Gino's last name?
Calvi, Calvi.
And how old was Gino?
So Gino was basically my age. So I'm 53. So if you take away about 20 years, he was 33. That sounds about right. Just in the prime of your life, with your whole world ahead of you. You know, you're not a teenager anymore. You're not necessarily a young adult anymore. You're looking to start a family. You're with the woman that you love, who is a wonderful woman, and was very happy to be around the four of us. You know, we would call her one of the guys. Sometimes we would kid around and say we like you better than we like Gino, but that wasn't necessarily true.
Do you ever feel him with you?
I do, and I'll tell you a little ties into one of his sayings. Gino was very handy. He had a lot of power tools, and if you wanted to borrow a tool, he would never allow you to. He'd say, "Tell me what you need to do. I'll come over and do it for you." And I lived down the block from him when we moved to East Rutherford, and he would come over with his power tools. And if I needed something done, he wouldn't let me touch the tool, but he would do it himself. And I'm quite handy, and so when I go to change, I'll do the brakes on my car, it's my wife's car, and I'll go into the auto parts store and I say, "I need brakes for whatever car it is." And the guy behind the counter says, "The cheapest I have is $89. And I say to him, "What makes you think I want to put the cheapest brakes on my wife's car?" And I'll say to him, "Quality pays, it doesn't cost." So, you know, a lot of the things that he used to say, when I encounter situations where I might use the same vocabulary that he would have used, or I'm looking to do a job and I know I can get it done faster, but it would be a shortcut. And at the end of the day, I may have to go back and fix it again sooner rather than later. That's kind of when I feel him around me saying, "No, Barry, take the time and do it the right way." Or, you know, be nice to this person, even if they're not being nice to you, and don't tell anyone where the printing press is. I don't know where the printing press is still, but yeah, no. When I'm doing certain things or certain music comes on, as I said, a Van Halen song, it takes me right back to I feel like you could be sitting next to me and we could be going somewhere together, as if it never happened.
Anything else you want to add?
No, I think I've tried to cover everything that I wanted to get across. I wanted to thank you. I think what you're doing is great. You know, the only way that future generations can understand the real impact of it is by telling stories and hearing what people have to say, as opposed to reading historical facts in a book.
Right, I agree. Thank you so much for taking the time, Barry.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure,
Appreciate it.
Shelli.